Life throws a lot at us, doesn't it? Fear, worries about our kids, the stress of exams, financial pressures, it's a lot. But what if there were simple, powerful spiritual practices that could help us navigate all of it? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dive into a guide that offers exactly that. 4 key remedies, drawn right from the Quran, for the kinds of problems we all face every single day. And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. The source we're exploring makes a really powerful claim about these practices. It says, we have seen its benefit with our own eyes thousands, millions of times. That right there sets the stage for what are presented as some seriously time-tested and impactful spiritual tools. So, first up, let's tackle something we can all relate to: fear. Whether you're facing an intimidating person or just feeling unsafe in an unfamiliar place, this guide offers what it calls spiritual shields for protection and courage. Let's get really specific. Imagine you have to deal with an authority figure, maybe an immigration officer, a police officer, or even just a difficult boss. How do you walk into that situation feeling calm and courageous, not terrified? Well, the guide lays out a simple 3-step process. First, you recite a specific verse from Surah Ya-Sin, which is a chapter of the Quran often called its very heart. Then, you gently blow in the direction of the person you're afraid of. And finally, you trust in the spiritual shield that this act is believed to create. So what's the goal here? What's supposed to happen? The text suggests that this practice can metaphorically put a veil over their eyes, basically preventing them from seeing you in a negative light or causing you any harm. It's presented as a spiritual way to just neutralize a tense situation. Okay, so that's dealing with the fear of people. But what about fear of our environment? Those moments when you're in a desolate place and you start worrying about unseen dangers, like snakes or scorpions? For that, there's another specific recitation. The practice is, before dusk sets in, to repeat the phrase, Salamun ala Nuhin fil alamin, which means peace be upon Noah among the worlds. This is specifically recommended as a shield against dangers like snake or scorpion bites, really aiming to give you a sense of security in those vulnerable situations. All right, let's shift gears and talk about something close to the heart for so many of us: protecting our children. We're going to look at a simple practice that's meant to shield a child from what's known as the evil eye. So the core question here is, how can parents spiritually protect their kids from this kind of unseen harm, often called nazar? It's a concept you find in so many cultures, and it's rooted in this idea that a really powerful gaze, even a gaze of admiration, can accidentally cause some kind of misfortune. And here is a really fascinating insight from the source. It notes that often the most potent form of the evil eye doesn't come from a stranger at all. It can actually come from a parent's own intense love and admiration for their child. It's described as this kind of unintentional side effect of their deep affection. So, what's the remedy? Well, it's presented as a simple daily practice. The parent recites a specific verse from Surah Yunus, that's the chapter named after the prophet Jonah, 3 times. Then they just gently blow upon their child. This is said to act as a daily shield, undoing any negative effects and bringing a sense of calm and protection. Next up, let's tackle a challenge that pretty much every student faces. How do you boost your focus and improve your memory for academic success? It's a straightforward question, right? Is there a spiritual practice that can actually help students hold on to what they learn and just perform better in their studies and exams? According to this guide, there absolutely is. The practice involves the student memorizing a very short chapter, Surah Ash-Sharh, which talks about opening the chest and lifting burdens. So before they start studying, they recite this surah and then blow once on their chest, almost like they're internalizing that feeling of clarity and ease. And to give you an idea of its claimed impact, the source mentions that this simple act has been used by hundreds of students memorizing the entire Quran, which is just a monumental feat of memory, and it has apparently proven to be consistently beneficial. For our final section, we're tackling a big one of the most common sources of stress in modern life: financial hardship. Let's look at the spiritual practice that's proposed for easing these kinds of burdens. So many of us feel that weight, don't we? The pressure of debt, the rising cost of everything, the uncertainty of running a business. So the question is, does this guide offer a spiritual routine to find some relief from that constant worry? It does, and this one is all about consistency. The instruction is to do this routine after each of the 5 daily obligatory prayers. It starts and ends with the Durud Sharif, a prayer of blessings. And right in the middle, the core of it, is reciting Surah Quraysh 7 times. After that whole sequence, you make your own personal prayer for financial relief. This visual really breaks it down nicely. On one side, you've got all the worries, debt, stress, feeling blocked. And on the other, you see the key parts of the remedy, the discipline of consistency, the focus of prayer, and that specific spiritual tool of reciting Surah Quraysh. And this is the crucial point. It's not presented as a magic, one-time fix. It's about a consistent, disciplined practice. The whole goal is described as opening the spiritual doors to sustenance and, maybe just as importantly, easing that mental anxiety that comes with financial instability. So let's do a super quick recap of the spiritual toolkit we've just unpacked. For fear, there's a verse from Surah Ya-Sin. For the evil eye on children, a verse from Surah Yunus. To help with memory, Surah Al-Inshirah. For financial ease, Surah Quraysh. And for safety, that specific phrase of peace. So we'll end with this thought. We've just covered a handful of practices for some very specific everyday problems. It really leaves you with a compelling question, doesn't it? If these few verses are said to hold such practical solutions, what other guidance for navigating our lives is just waiting to be discovered?